It was February 10th, 2026 at 2:47 a.m. when a message from a desperate mother telling me her son had taken his life just hours before drove me to a mountaintop overlook outside Santa Fe, and there, surrounded by the vast New Mexico wilderness, stretching endlessly below me under a canopy of stars so thick they looked like diamond dust scattered across black velvet, Jesus appeared with tears streaming down his face and spoke words that shattered everything I thought I knew about suicide, about mercy, about the Father's heart. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it. But you've been marked. You've been marked because you're here, right now, reading these words. That's not coincidence. That's divine appointment. Before I go any further, I need you to do something. I need you to leave your prayer request in the comments below. I don't care how impossible your situation seems. I don't care if you've been struggling with thoughts of ending your own life. I don't care if you've lost someone to suicide and the guilt is eating you alive. Leave it in the comments. Because what Jesus showed me that night, what he's about to show you, it changes everything. And listen, if you're a true believer, if you're someone who wants to go deeper with Jesus, who isn't satisfied with the shallow, sanitized version of Christianity that most churches are serving up these days, then you need to subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that notification bell. Because what I'm about to share with you over the next few nights is going to challenge everything you think you know. Some of you know me as Jonathan Rumi, the actor who portrays Jesus in The Chosen, and I want to be clear about something. I'm not Jesus, I'm just a broken man who's been given the extraordinary privilege of portraying him. But that very brokenness, that very awareness of my own desperate need for grace, has opened doors in the spiritual realm that I never expected. It's given me encounters that I can't explain, that I can't rationalize away, that have left me undone and remade. This is one of those encounters. The temperature that morning was dropping fast, maybe 38 degrees, and I could see my breath forming clouds in the air every time I exhaled. I'd driven up that mountain road in complete darkness, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, that mother's message still burning in my mind. Jonathan, my son, watched The Chosen. He loved Jesus, but the depression was too much. He's gone. Please tell me he's okay. Please tell me God didn't reject him. I didn't have an answer for her. The traditional answer, the one I'd heard in church my whole life, felt like ashes in my mouth. Suicide is self-murder. It's an unrepentant sin. There's no chance for salvation after. But something in my spirit was screaming that this couldn't be the whole truth. It couldn't be the heart of the Father I'd come to know through portraying his Son. So I drove, and I climbed, and I found myself on that overlook, standing at the edge where the mountain dropped away into darkness, where the wind was whipping so hard it felt like it might push me right over the edge. The irony wasn't lost on me. I stood there, and I did something I'd never done before. I demanded an answer. Jesus, I said out loud, my voice cracking. I need to know. I need to know what happens to people who take their own lives. I need to know if that boy is with you, or if he's lost forever. I need to know because I can't keep playing you on screen and not know your heart on this. The wind stopped. I mean, it completely stopped. One moment it was howling around me, and the next, the air was perfectly still, unnaturally still, the kind of stillness that makes your ears ring because the silence is so complete. And then I heard his voice. Not audibly. Or maybe it was audible. I honestly can't tell you the difference anymore. But I heard it with a clarity that was more real than any sound my physical ears have ever processed. Jonathan. Just my name. But the way he said it, with such tenderness, such grief, such love, I fell to my knees right there on the rocky ground. The stones bit into my kneecaps through my jeans, but I barely felt it. I'm here, Lord, I whispered. Look up. I lifted my eyes, and what I saw defies description. The stars were still there, but they were moving, swirling, forming patterns. And in the midst of them, he was there. Not in the way I portray him on The Chosen, not in the way artists have painted him for centuries. He was there in a way that was more real than reality itself, more solid than the mountain beneath me, more present than my own heartbeat. His face was wet with tears. You want to know what happens to those who take their own lives? He said, and his voice was thick with emotion. You want to know if I turn my back on them in their darkest moment? Yes, Lord, I managed to say. Then watch. He raised his hand, and suddenly the darkness below the overlook wasn't darkness anymore. It was like I was seeing into another dimension, another reality. I saw a young man, the mother's son I somehow knew, standing in what looked like a gray, misty place. He looked confused, frightened, but not tormented, not burning, not screaming. And then I saw Jesus walk toward him. The boy's eyes went wide. I thought, I thought you wouldn't want me anymore. I thought I'd committed the unforgivable sin. Jesus reached out and pulled him into an embrace so fierce, so complete, that I started weeping right there on that mountaintop. My child, Jesus said to him, do you think your pain was stronger than my love? Do you think your moment of desperation could override my finished work on the cross? Do you think I didn't see every chemical imbalance, every spiritual attack, every moment of darkness that led you to that choice? But the church said, the boy started. The church has said many things in my name that don't reflect my Father's heart, Jesus interrupted, and there was steel in his voice now. They've built doctrines on fear instead of love. They've created a God who is less merciful than they are. Tell me, if you saw someone drowning, would you pull them from the water or push them under because they'd given up swimming? The vision faded, and I was back on the mountaintop, gasping for air like I'd been underwater myself. Jesus was still there, and now he turned to face me fully. Jonathan, what I'm about to tell you will be controversial. It will make religious people angry. It will challenge doctrines that have stood for centuries. But it's the truth, and the truth is what sets people free. I nodded, unable to speak. Suicide is not the unforgivable sin, he said, and each word landed like a hammer blow. The unforgivable sin is the complete, final rejection of the Holy Spirit's conviction, and a person in such mental anguish that they take their own life is not in a state to make that kind of eternal decision. They're drowning, they're suffocating, their brain chemistry is lying to them, demons are whispering to them, the weight of this broken world is crushing them. He paused, and a shooting star streaked across the sky behind him, or maybe it was an angel, I couldn't tell. Do you know what I see when someone takes their own life? He continued. I see the culmination of every wound they've ever received. I see every moment they were told they weren't enough. I see every chemical imbalance, every genetic predisposition, every trauma that rewired their brain. I see the enemy's fingerprints all over it, and I see a child of mine who needed rescue. But Lord, I said, finding my voice, what about free will? What about the choice they made? His eyes, those eyes that I've tried so hard to capture in my portrayal but never could, filled with fresh tears. Jonathan, when someone is drowning, they're not thinking clearly. When someone's brain is telling them that everyone would be better off without them, that's not clear thinking. That's illness. That's attack. That's the enemy's lie. And I don't hold people eternally accountable for decisions made under that kind of duress. The wind picked up again, but gently this time, like a whisper. Let me show you something else, he said. Another vision opened before me. This time I saw a woman standing on a bridge. I could feel her desperation, her pain, like it was my own. She was seconds away from jumping, and then I saw something that made my blood run cold. I saw demons surrounding her, whispering to her, pushing her, telling her that death was the only way out. But then I saw something else. I saw angels there too, fighting, pushing back, trying to break through to her mind with truth. And I saw Jesus himself standing right beside her, weeping, calling her name, trying to reach through the fog of her depression. She jumped, and the moment she did, the moment her body left that bridge, I saw Jesus dive after her, not her body, her soul, and he caught her. He caught her and held her and spoke life over her even as her physical body was falling. I don't abandon my children in their darkest moment, he said to me, and his voice was fierce now. I don't say, well, you made your choice, now suffer forever. That's not who I am. That's not who my Father is. We are the God who leaves the 99 to find the one. We are the God who runs toward the prodigal. We are the God who saves to the uttermost. I was sobbing now, my whole body shaking, because I realized that everything I'd been taught, everything I'd believed about suicide, was filtering God's mercy through human judgment. But what about justice? I asked. What about the fact that life is sacred, that we're not supposed to take it, even our own? Justice? He said, and there was something almost like a sad smile on his face. Jonathan, my justice was satisfied on the cross. All sin, past, present, and future, was paid for there. Do you think I went through that torture, that separation from my Father, that death, only to have it not be enough for someone who dies by their own hand in a moment of unbearable pain? He stepped closer to me, and I could feel the heat radiating from him despite the cold mountain air. Here's what most people don't understand, he said. Salvation isn't about your last moment. It's about your heart's direction. It's about whether you've said yes to me, whether you've received my grace. And that grace doesn't evaporate because someone's brain chemistry betrays them or because the weight of this broken world becomes too much to bear. Another vision flashed before me. This time I saw thousands, maybe millions of people. All of them had taken their own lives, and I saw Jesus going to each one, meeting them in that moment between death and eternity, speaking to them, offering them one final choice. You mean there's a chance after death? I asked, shocked. I mean that my mercy is bigger than your theology, he replied. I mean that the moment of physical death is not the end of all opportunity for those who never truly rejected me. I mean that I judge the heart, not just the final action, and I mean that for those who are mine, who have said yes to me, who have received my grace, even if they die by their own hand in a moment of darkness, I don't let them go. The sky was starting to lighten in the east. Dawn was coming. I could see the landscape below taking shape, mesas and valleys, the Rio Grande snaking through the distance like a silver ribbon. This is going to upset a lot of people, I said quietly. Truth often does, he replied, especially truth that reveals how much smaller people have made my mercy than it actually is. They want a God they can understand, a God whose grace has limits they can define. But I am not that God. I am the God whose mercy triumphs over judgment. I am the God who saves the worst of sinners. I am the God who redeems what seems irredeemable. He placed his hand on my shoulder, and the warmth of it spread through my entire body. Tomorrow night, he said, come back here. There's more you need to see. There's more you need to understand, because this isn't just about suicide. This is about the entire way my church has been thinking about sin, about grace, about who gets saved and who doesn't. I'll be here, I promised. I know you will, he said. You've been marked for this message. You've been chosen to carry this truth to people who are drowning in despair, who think they're beyond my reach, who believe the lie that their pain is stronger than my love. The vision faded. He faded. And I was alone on that mountaintop as the sun broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and purple. But I wasn't the same person who had driven up that mountain in darkness. I sat there for another hour, watching the sunrise, feeling the warmth return to the air, listening to the birds begin their morning songs. And I thought about that mother's son. I thought about everyone who's ever felt so hopeless that death seemed like the only way out. I thought about the people watching this video right now who are fighting those thoughts, and I heard his voice one more time, soft as the morning breeze. Tell them I haven't given up on them. Tell them their pain doesn't disqualify them from my love. Tell them to hold on because I'm coming for them. I'm always coming for them. Listen to me. If you're struggling with thoughts of suicide right now, if you're in that dark place where you can't see any way forward, I need you to hear this. Jesus hasn't given up on you. Your pain is real. Your struggle is real. But the lie that you're better off dead, that everyone would be better off without you, that's from the pit of hell, and it's not true. Hold on, please hold on. Because tomorrow night I'm going back to that mountain, and Jesus is going to show me more. He's going to reveal things about his mercy, about his heart for the broken and desperate that will give you hope to keep fighting. Leave your prayer request in the comments. Tell me if you're struggling. Tell me if you've lost someone to suicide. Tell me if you need hope. Because this message isn't just for information. It's for transformation. It's for rescue. And if you're a true believer, someone who wants to go deeper, who isn't afraid of truth that challenges tradition, then subscribe to this channel right now. Because what's coming in the next parts of this encounter will shake the foundations of everything you've been taught about God's mercy. Tomorrow night, I return to the mountain. Tomorrow night, Jesus shows me the scope of this issue, how many people are suffering, how many are on the edge, and what the church has gotten wrong about all of it. You've been marked to see this message. Don't scroll past. Don't ignore it. Your presence here right now is not an accident. I'll see you tomorrow night. I return to that mountaintop overlook at 3:15 a.m. on February 11th, 2026, and this time I wasn't alone in my car on the drive up. The presence of Jesus was so thick, so tangible, that I could barely keep my hands steady on the wheel. The temperature had dropped even further. The dashboard read 29 degrees, and as I climbed higher into the mountains, a light snow began to fall. each flake illuminated by my headlights like tiny angels descending from heaven. When I reached the overlook and stepped out of my car, the snow was already dusting the ground with a thin white layer that crunched beneath my boots. The sky was crystal clear above, stars blazing with an intensity that seemed almost aggressive, like they were demanding to be seen. The Milky Way stretched across the heavens like a river of light, and I could see my breath forming thick clouds in the freezing air. I walked to the same spot where I'd stood the night before, where I'd fallen to my knees, where Jesus had first shattered my understanding of his mercy. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, because I knew he was coming. I could feel it in every cell of my body. Jesus, I said into the darkness, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm here. I came back like you asked. The response was immediate. The snow stopped falling, mid-air. I'm not exaggerating. The snowflakes just stopped, suspended in the air around me like someone had pressed pause on reality. And in that impossible stillness, he appeared. But this time, he didn't appear in front of me. He appeared beside me, standing so close that our shoulders were almost touching, both of us looking out over the vast expanse of darkness and distant lights below. Do you see that city down there? He asked, gesturing toward the scattered lights of Santa Fe in the distance. Yes, Lord. In that city right now, at this very moment, there are 47 people contemplating suicide, 47 people who are so deep in darkness that they're planning how they'll end their lives, some tonight, some tomorrow, some next week. The number hit me like a physical blow. 47? Just in that one city? Just in that one city, he confirmed. And that's not unusual. That's every city, every town, every community across this broken world. Right now, as we stand here, there are millions of my children who are drowning in despair, millions who think death is their only escape, millions who believe the lie that they're beyond hope, beyond help, beyond my reach. He turned to face me, and in the starlight, I could see that his face was etched with a grief so profound it made my chest ache. Last night, I showed you what happens to those who take their own lives, that my mercy doesn't end at their last breath, that I don't abandon them in their darkest moment. But tonight, I need to show you something harder. I need to show you why this is happening. I need to show you what the church has done and failed to do that has led to this epidemic of hopelessness. I'm listening, Lord, I said, though part of me was terrified of what he was about to reveal. He raised his hand, and suddenly the landscape below us transformed. Instead of seeing the physical terrain, I was seeing something else, a spiritual overlay, like a second reality superimposed on the first. And what I saw made me gasp. Over the city, over the mountains, over the entire visible landscape, there was a thick, dark fog. It moved and writhed like something alive, and within it I could see shapes, demonic entities, thousands of them moving through the fog like sharks through water. This is the spirit of suicide, Jesus said, his voice heavy. It's not just a personal struggle. It's not just mental illness or chemical imbalance, though those are real and those are factors. This is a coordinated attack. The enemy has released a spirit of death over this generation unlike anything the world has seen before. As I watched, I saw tendrils of that dark fog reaching down into homes, into bedrooms, into the minds of people sleeping below. I saw it wrapping around teenagers staring at their phones at 3 a.m. I saw it settling over single mothers working third shifts, over veterans lying awake with PTSD, over elderly people forgotten in nursing homes, over successful businessmen who looked perfect on the outside but were dying inside. Why? I asked, my voice breaking. Why is this happening now? Why is it so much worse? Jesus was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, there was anger in his voice, not at me, but at what he was seeing. Because the enemy knows his time is short, because this generation is marked for a great awakening, and he's trying to kill them before they can step into their destiny, because isolation has increased, community has decreased, and people are more disconnected from real relationship than ever before, because the church, my bride, has failed to create safe spaces for people to be honest about their pain. He pointed to a church building visible in the distance, its steeple catching the starlight. Do you know what happens in that church when someone admits they're struggling with suicidal thoughts? He asked. I shook my head. They're told to pray more, to have more faith, to rebuke the devil. They're given platitudes and Bible verses and sent home with a smile and a promise that God works all things for good. And then they go home and they're still drowning. But now they're drowning in shame because they think their faith isn't strong enough. They think if they were really saved, really spirit-filled, they wouldn't feel this way. The pain in his voice was unbearable, and so they hide it. They put on the mask. They show up on Sunday morning with their worship hands raised and their I'm blessed testimonies, and inside they're screaming for someone to see them, to really see them, to tell them it's okay to not be okay. Another vision opened before me. I saw a young woman sitting in a church service, tears streaming down her face during worship. She was crying out to God in her mind, "Please help me. I can't do this anymore. I want to die." And I saw people around her, other worshipers glancing at her and then looking away, uncomfortable with her display of raw emotion. After the service, I watched as she stood in the lobby, hoping someone would ask if she was okay. A few people smiled at her. One person said, "God bless you, sister," but no one stopped, no one asked, no one saw. That night, she went home and took a bottle of pills. "No," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Please, no." "She survived," Jesus said quietly. "This time. But how many don't? How many cry out in church services and go home unseen? How many reach out for help and are given religious platitudes instead of real support?" He turned back to the landscape, and the spiritual overlay intensified. Now I could see not just the demonic fog, but also lights, points of light scattered throughout the darkness. Some were bright, some were dim, some were flickering like candles about to go out. "These are my children," Jesus said. "Each light is a person who belongs to me, and do you see how many of them are flickering, how many are on the verge of going out?" I could see it, hundreds of lights just in the visible area that were barely holding on. "What happens when they go out?" I asked, afraid of the answer. "That depends," he said. "It depends on whether they've truly rejected me or whether they've just been overwhelmed by the darkness. It depends on whether their last breath is a final no to my grace or a desperate I can't in the midst of unbearable pain." He walked forward, closer to the edge of the overlook, and I followed. The suspended snowflakes moved with us, maintaining their impossible stillness in the air. "Jonathan, I need you to understand something crucial," he said. "The traditional teaching, that suicide is an automatic ticket to hell, that it's the unforgivable sin, has done more damage than you can imagine. It hasn't prevented suicides, it's added to them, because people who are already in unbearable pain now have the added terror of eternal damnation. And for those who've lost loved ones to suicide, it's added the unbearable weight of believing their child, their spouse, their parent is in hell." He turned to me and his eyes were blazing now. "Do you know how many people have taken their own lives specifically because they believed they were already damned, because they'd been told that their struggles meant they weren't really saved, that their depression was evidence of demon possession, that their mental illness was just a lack of faith? They thought, if I'm going to hell anyway, I might as well end this pain now." The anger in his voice was righteous, holy, and it shook me to my core. That teaching doesn't come from my father's heart. It comes from a religious spirit that values doctrine over people, that prioritizes theological correctness over mercy, that would rather be right than be loving. Another vision unfolded. This time I saw a man, middle-aged, wearing a suit, standing in front of a congregation, preaching about the dangers of suicide. His words were harsh, condemning, filled with warnings about hell and eternal separation from God, and I saw the faces in the congregation, some nodding in agreement, but others were dying inside. A teenage boy in the third row, already cutting himself in secret, heard those words and thought, "I'm already lost." A woman in the back, whose son had killed himself 2 years ago, heard those words and felt the knife of guilt twist deeper into her heart. "Stop," I said, unable to watch anymore. "Please, stop." The vision faded. "I'm not showing you this to hurt you," Jesus said gently. "I'm showing you this because it has to change. The church has to change. My people have to understand that mental illness is not a spiritual failure, that brain chemistry is real, that trauma rewires the brain in ways that can't be prayed away, that sometimes people need medication, need therapy, need professional help, and that's not a lack of faith, that's wisdom." He gestured to the landscape again, and I saw something new. Among the demonic fog and the flickering lights, I saw bridges, actual bridges connecting people to each other, connecting people to him. But many of the bridges were broken, severed, leaving people isolated on islands of despair. "Community," Jesus said. "That's what's missing, real community. Not Sunday morning acquaintances, not social media connections, but deep, authentic relationships where people can be honest about their struggles without fear of judgment. Where someone can say, 'I'm thinking about killing myself,' and instead of being met with shock and platitudes, they're met with, "I'm so glad you told me. You're not alone. Let's get you help." The wind picked up suddenly, and the suspended snowflakes finally began to fall again, swirling around us in intricate patterns. "I need to tell you something about my Father's heart," Jesus continued, his voice softer now. "When someone takes their own life, do you know what he feels?" "Anger," I guessed. "Disappointment." "Grief," he said. "Profound, overwhelming grief. Not because they've committed some unforgivable sin, but because another one of his children was in so much pain that death seemed like the only escape. He grieves the way any parent grieves when their child suffers. He grieves the broken world that led to that moment. He grieves the failure of the church to be a safe place. He grieves the lies of the enemy that convinced that person they were worthless." He paused, and a shooting star streaked across the sky, or maybe it was another angel, I still couldn't tell. "But grief is not rejection. Grief is not condemnation. My Father grieves because he loves, not because he's withdrawing his love." I thought about my own father, about how he would react if I were in unbearable pain. Would he condemn me, or would he weep for me? Would he turn his back, or would he run toward me? "Exactly," Jesus said, reading my thoughts. "And if earthly fathers who are flawed and broken know how to love their children in their darkest moments, how much more does your heavenly Father? How much more does he run toward you, not away from you when you're drowning?" Another vision opened, and this one was different. I saw the same young man from the first night, the mother's son who had taken his life, but now I saw more of his story. I saw his childhood, the abuse he'd suffered. I saw the chemical imbalance in his brain, visible like a dark stain on his neural pathways. I saw the demonic attacks, the whispers that had started when he was just a child. "You're worthless, you're a burden. Everyone would be better off without you." I saw him trying to fight it. I saw him praying, reading his Bible, going to church. I saw him reaching out for help and being told to just have faith. I saw the medication he tried that didn't work, the therapy sessions he couldn't afford to continue. I saw him holding on, holding on, holding on, until he couldn't anymore. And then I saw the moment of his death. I saw Jesus there, not standing back in judgment, but rushing forward to catch him. I saw the boy's confusion, his fear, his certainty that he was damned. And I heard Jesus speak to him. "My child, you fought so hard, you held on so long. I saw every battle, every moment you chose to live, even when you wanted to die. I saw your faith, even when it felt like you had none. And I'm not letting you go. You're mine. You've always been mine. And nothing, not even this, can separate you from my love." I was on my knees again, sobbing into my hands. The snow was falling harder now, coating my hair and shoulders, but I didn't care. "How many?" I managed to ask. "How many people who take their own lives are actually with you?" "More than the church thinks," he said. "Far more. Because I judge the heart, not just the final action. I see the whole story, not just the last chapter, and I am far more merciful than human theology has allowed me to be." He knelt beside me in the snow, and I felt his hand on my back. "But Jonathan, here's what I need you to understand. Just because my mercy is greater than the church has taught doesn't mean suicide is okay. It doesn't mean it's not a tragedy. It doesn't mean people shouldn't fight to stay alive. Every suicide is a victory for the enemy, a life cut short, a destiny unfulfilled. The fact that I can redeem it doesn't mean it's not devastating." "Then what do we do?" I asked, looking up at him. "How do we fight this?" "You start by telling the truth," he said. "You tell people that mental illness is real. You tell them that suicidal thoughts don't mean they're not saved. You tell them that asking for help is not weakness. You tell them that medication is not a lack of faith. You tell them that I am not waiting to condemn them, but to rescue them." He stood, pulling me to my feet with him. "And you tell the church to wake up, to stop being so afraid of messiness that they create environments where people have to pretend to be okay, to stop valuing appearance over authenticity, to stop giving platitudes when people need practical help." The sky was beginning to lighten in the east again. Dawn was coming, and with it, the end of our second encounter. "Tomorrow night," Jesus said, "I'm going to show you the final piece. I'm going to show you what's at stake, what happens if the church doesn't change, and what hope looks like for those who are drowning right now. I'll be here," I promised. "I know," he said, "because you've been marked for this. You've been chosen to carry this message to a generation that's dying, literally dying, for lack of hope." He began to fade, but his voice remained echoing across the mountain. "Tell them to hold on. Tell them I'm coming. Tell them their pain is not stronger than my love. And then he was gone, and I was alone on that snow-covered overlook as the sun began to rise, painting the white landscape in shades of pink and gold. I sat in my car for a long time before driving down, the heater blasting, my hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold, and I thought about everyone watching this video. I thought about the ones who are fighting suicidal thoughts right now. I thought about the ones who've lost someone to suicide and have been carrying the weight of believing their loved one is in hell. And I heard his voice one more time, soft as the morning light. Tell them the truth sets them free. Tell them my mercy is bigger than their theology. Tell them to hold on for one more day, one more hour, one more minute, because I'm coming for them. Listen to me. If you're in that dark place right now, if you're planning how you'll end your life, I need you to hear this. Jesus sees you. He sees your pain. He sees your struggle, and he's not condemning you. He's fighting for you. The thoughts telling you that everyone would be better off without you are lies from hell. The feeling that you're beyond hope is a demonic attack. The belief that you're too broken for God to love you is the enemy's greatest deception. Hold on. Please, hold on. Call the suicide prevention hotline, 988. Text a friend. Go to an emergency room. Do whatever you have to do to stay alive tonight. Because tomorrow night, I'm going back to that mountain one more time, and Jesus is going to reveal the final piece of this puzzle, the hope that can pull you back from the edge. If you've lost someone to suicide, if you've been carrying the guilt and the fear that they're lost forever, I need you to hear this. God's mercy is bigger than you've been told. His love doesn't end at the moment of death. And the Jesus I've encountered on that mountain is not the harsh judge you've been taught to fear. He's the good shepherd who leaves the 99 to find the one, who pursues his children even into their darkest moments. Leave your prayer requests in the comments. Tell me your story. Tell me if you're struggling. Tell me if you need hope. Because this isn't just a message. It's a lifeline. And you've been marked to receive it. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. Because tomorrow night's encounter is going to be the most intense yet. Jesus is going to show me things about his mercy, about his judgment, about the eternal destiny of those who take their own lives that will challenge everything the church has taught for centuries. One more night, one more encounter, one more revelation that will change everything. You've been marked. Don't scroll past. Don't ignore this. Your presence here is not an accident. I'll see you tomorrow night back on that mountain for the final encounter. February 12th, 2026, 3:33 a.m. I made the drive up that mountain road for the third night, and this time everything was different. The snow from the previous night had turned to ice, making the road treacherous, and twice my tires slipped on black ice, sending my heart into my throat. The temperature had plummeted to 19 degrees, and the wind was howling with a ferocity that made my car shudder. But I kept driving because I knew this was the night. This was the culmination. This was when Jesus would reveal the final, most challenging truths about suicide, about mercy, about judgment, and about what the church has gotten catastrophically wrong. When I finally reached the overlook and stepped out of my car, the wind nearly knocked me off my feet. It wasn't just wind. It was like the air itself was alive with spiritual warfare. I could feel the resistance, the pushback, the demonic forces that didn't want this message to get out. My ears were ringing from the cold and the altitude, and when I breathed, the air burned my lungs. The sky above was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Storm clouds were rolling in from the west, but the stars were still visible in the east, creating this impossible contrast of darkness and light. Lightning flickered in the distant clouds, but there was no thunder, just silent flashes that illuminated the landscape below in brief, stark moments of clarity. I walked to the edge of the overlook, to the same spot where I'd stood for 2 nights, and I didn't even have to call out to him. He was already there. But this time he wasn't beside me or in front of me. He was standing on the very edge of the cliff, his arms outstretched, his face turned toward the storm, and he was weeping. Not quiet tears. He was weeping with his whole body, shoulders shaking, sounds of grief that seemed to echo across the entire mountain range. "Lord," I said, my voice barely audible over the wind. He turned to face me, and what I saw in his face made me fall to my knees on the frozen ground. It was anguish, pure, unfiltered anguish, the kind of pain that no human being could survive feeling. "Do you know what I'm hearing right now?" he asked, his voice raw. "Right now, in this very moment, across the world." I shook my head, unable to speak. I'm hearing the cries of my children who are taking their last breaths by their own hands. I'm hearing the final thoughts of a teenager in Tokyo who just swallowed a bottle of pills. I'm hearing the prayer of a veteran in Texas who's holding a gun to his head, asking me to forgive him even as he pulls the trigger. I'm hearing the silent scream of a mother in London who's about to step off a bridge, convinced her children would be better off without her. Each word was like a hammer blow to my chest. And do you know what breaks my heart more than anything? He continued, his voice rising above the wind. It's not just that they're dying, it's that most of them believe, in their final moments, that I'm going to reject them, that this one act, born out of unbearable pain and mental anguish, is going to override everything I did on the cross, that my blood wasn't enough to cover this. He walked toward me, and with each step, the wind seemed to intensify. When he reached me, he pulled me to my feet with a strength that was both gentle and irresistible. Tonight, I'm going to show you things that will make religious people furious. I'm going to reveal truths that will be called heresy by those who value their doctrines more than they value hurting people. But these truths need to be spoken, because people are dying, literally dying, under the weight of false teaching about my mercy. He raised his hand, and suddenly we weren't on the mountain anymore. Or rather, we were still on the mountain, but we were also somewhere else, in that place between time and eternity, between the physical and the spiritual, where Jesus had been taking me for these 3 nights, and what I saw made me understand why he was weeping. I saw a vast space. It looked like an enormous valley, stretching as far as I could see in every direction, and filling that valley were people, millions of people, maybe billions, all of them standing in a gray mist, all of them looking confused, frightened, lost. These are all the people who have taken their own lives throughout human history, Jesus said quietly. From the beginning of time until this very moment, every single person who died by their own hand. The scope of it was overwhelming. I couldn't process the numbers, couldn't comprehend the sheer magnitude of human suffering represented in that valley. And now watch, he said. I watched as Jesus began to walk into that valley, and as he did, something extraordinary happened. He began to multiply, not dividing himself, but somehow being fully present with each person simultaneously. I saw him approach a young girl who couldn't have been more than 13. I saw him kneel before an elderly man. I saw him embrace a soldier still in uniform. I saw him weep with a mother. I saw him speak tenderly to a teenager. And with each person, I heard him ask the same question. Do you want to come home? Some said yes immediately, falling into his arms with sobs of relief. These were people who had known him, who had said yes to his grace at some point in their lives, but who had been overwhelmed by darkness in their final moments. I watched as he gathered them, as light began to emanate from them, as the gray mist around them transformed into something beautiful. But others hesitated. Some looked at him with confusion, as if seeing him for the first time. And to these he spoke differently. I am Jesus. I died for you. I rose for you. Even now, even here, my offer of grace stands. Will you receive it? Will you let me save you? And I watched as some of these, people who had never known him in life, who had never heard the gospel or had rejected it, heard the truth for the first time in that moment. Some said yes. Some fell at his feet. Some reached out with desperate hands. But others, and this is the part that broke my heart, others turned away. They looked at him and said, No, I don't want you. I don't need you. I reject you. Lord, I said, my voice shaking, are you saying there's a chance after death? That people can be saved after they die? He turned to me, and his face was serious. I'm saying that my mercy is more complex than your theology has allowed for. I'm saying that for those who never truly had a chance to know me in life, whether because of mental illness or demonic oppression or circumstances beyond their control, I don't stop pursuing them at the moment of physical death. I'm saying that the moment between death and final judgment is not what you've been taught. He gestured to the valley again. But understand this clearly. This is not universalism. This is not a second chance for those who clearly rejected me in life. This is mercy for those whose final act was not a rejection of me, but a surrender to unbearable pain. This is grace for those whose mental state was so compromised that they couldn't make a clear eternal choice. This is love for those who were mine, but who fell in their darkest moment. Another vision opened within the vision. I saw a man I recognized from the first night, someone who had been a believer, who had loved Jesus, but who had struggled with severe depression. I watched his final moments, sitting in his car in a closed garage, engine running, tears streaming down his face, and I heard his final prayer. Jesus, I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. Please forgive me. Please don't let this mean I lose you forever. I love you, but I can't. I just can't. I watched as he lost consciousness. I watched as his spirit left his body. And I watched as Jesus was there, immediately, catching him as he fell. My child, Jesus said to him, you think this moment of weakness overrides a lifetime of faith? You think your brain chemistry lying to you means I'm going to abandon you? You think I went through the cross, through the separation from my Father, through death itself, only to let you go because the pain became too much? The man looked at Jesus with disbelief. But I committed suicide. I took my own life. The church has said many things that don't reflect my Father's heart, Jesus interrupted, and there was steel in his voice. Yes, you took your life. Yes, that was not my plan for you. Yes, you cut short the destiny I had for you on earth. But did you reject me? Did you turn your back on my grace? Did you say, I don't want Jesus anymore? No, the man said emphatically. Never. I love you. I couldn't bear the pain anymore. My brain was telling me lies, and I couldn't see any other way out. Jesus pulled him into an embrace. Then you're mine. You've always been mine, and nothing, not even this, can separate you from my love. The vision shifted, and I saw another person, a woman who had also taken her life. But her story was different. I saw her life. She had heard the gospel multiple times. She had been invited to church, had been witnessed to by friends, had even attended services occasionally, but she had consistently, deliberately rejected Jesus, not out of ignorance, but out of willful choice. She had said repeatedly, I don't need God, I don't want God, I'll live life on my own terms. And when her life became unbearable and she took her own life, I watched as Jesus still came to her in that moment between death and judgment. I watched as he still offered her grace, still extended his hand, still said, even now I will save you if you'll let me. But she looked at him and said, no, I lived without you and I'll face whatever comes without you. And I watched as she walked away from him, into darkness. This is the difference, Jesus said to me, his voice heavy with grief. The unforgivable sin is not suicide. The unforgivable sin is the final, complete, willful rejection of my grace. Some people who commit suicide are running toward me in their pain, even if they can't articulate it. Others are running away from everything, including me. I judge the heart, I see the whole story, and I make the final determination based on truth, not on human assumptions about what suicide means. The wind on the mountain was reaching a fever pitch now. The storm clouds had moved closer and rain was beginning to mix with sleet, stinging my face like tiny needles. But I couldn't look away from what Jesus was showing me. Show me more, I said. Show me what happens to those who are saved, who are yours, but who die by their own hand. He nodded, and the vision shifted again. I saw the same valley, but now I was seeing only those who had said yes to Jesus, those who were his, who had received his grace, and I watched as he led them out of that gray place into something else. It wasn't heaven yet, not the final heaven, not the eternal state. It was like a waiting place, but not purgatory as the Catholics teach it. It was more like a healing place. I saw people being ministered to by angels. I saw their minds being healed from the trauma and the lies that had led them to take their lives. I saw the chemical imbalances being corrected, the demonic oppression being lifted, the wounds being bound up. I saw them beginning to understand what had happened to them, how the enemy had attacked them, how their brains had betrayed them. And I saw them weeping, not in torment, but in relief. Relief that they were safe. Relief that Jesus hadn't rejected them. Relief that the pain was finally over. This is what I do for my children who fall in this way, Jesus said. I heal them, I restore them, I help them understand what happened. And then when they're ready, when they're whole, they enter into the fullness of joy that I have prepared for them. But what about the destiny they missed on earth, I asked. What about the years they could have lived, the things they could have accomplished? His face grew sad. That is the tragedy. That is what the enemy stole. Every suicide is a theft of years, of impact, of relationships, of the good works I prepared in advance for that person to do. The fact that I can redeem them eternally doesn't erase the loss of what could have been on earth. That's why suicide is still a tragedy, even when the person is saved. That's why we must fight it with everything we have. Thunder finally rolled across the mountain, and lightning struck somewhere close enough that I could smell the ozone in the air. The storm was here. But here's what the church must understand, Jesus continued, raising his voice above the thunder. The way to fight suicide is not by threatening people with hell. It's not by making them more afraid, more ashamed, more convinced that they're beyond hope. The way to fight suicide is by creating communities of radical honesty, by destigmatizing mental illness, by providing real help instead of religious platitudes, by being the hands and feet of a God who runs toward the broken, not away from them. Another vision opened, and this one was of the future, or a possible future. I saw churches transformed. I saw pastors preaching about mental health from the pulpit. I saw small groups where people could admit they were struggling with suicidal thoughts without fear of judgment. I saw church budgets that included funding for counseling and therapy. I saw believers walking alongside those in crisis, not with Bible verses and cliches, but with presence and practical help. And I saw the suicide rate dropping. I saw lives being saved. I saw people who would have died instead choosing to live because they finally found a community that could hold their pain without trying to fix it with quick answers. This is what's possible, Jesus said. This is what I'm calling my church to become, not a place of pretense and performance, but a hospital for the sick, a refuge for the broken, a family that doesn't abandon its members in their darkest hours. The vision faded, and I was back on the mountain, the storm raging around us. Lightning was striking all around now, illuminating the landscape in brilliant flashes. And in one of those flashes, I saw something that made my blood run cold. I saw the demonic entities I'd seen on the second night, the spirits of suicide, the forces of darkness that were driving people to take their lives. But now I saw them more clearly. I saw their strategy. I saw how they worked. They would isolate people, cutting them off from community. They would whisper lies. You're a burden. Everyone would be better off without you. You're beyond help. Even God can't love someone as broken as you. They would amplify mental illness, intensify chemical imbalances, magnify trauma. And then, when the person was at their weakest, they would present suicide as the only logical option, the only escape, the only solution. And I saw how the church, unintentionally but devastatingly, had often played right into the enemy's hands, by stigmatizing mental illness as a spiritual failure, by offering simplistic solutions to complex problems, by creating environments where people had to pretend to be okay, by teaching a version of God's mercy that was too small, too conditional, too limited. This has to change, Jesus said, and his voice was like thunder itself. My people have to wake up. They have to understand that they're in a war and the enemy is killing their brothers and sisters while they argue about doctrine and maintain their comfortable distance from messy, broken people. He turned to face me fully, and in the lightning flashes, his face was terrible and beautiful at the same time. Jonathan, here is what I need you to tell them. Here is the message that will make some people angry but will save lives. First, suicide is not the unforgivable sin. The unforgivable sin is the complete, final rejection of the Holy Spirit's conviction. A person in such mental anguish that they take their own life is not in a state to make that kind of eternal decision. Second, mental illness is real. Brain chemistry is real. Trauma is real. These are not spiritual failures. They are medical conditions that require medical treatment. Telling someone to just pray more when they have clinical depression is like telling someone with a broken leg to just have more faith instead of going to the hospital. Third, I judge the heart, not just the final action. I see the whole story, every wound, every attack, every moment of pain that led to that final decision, and my mercy takes all of that into account. Fourth, for those who are mine, who have said yes to my grace, who have received my salvation, even suicide cannot separate them from my love. They may lose years on earth, they may miss their earthly destiny, but they do not lose their eternal salvation. My blood covers all sin, including this one. Fifth, the church must become a safe place for people to be honest about their struggles. No more pretense, no more performance, no more I'm blessed when you're actually drowning. Real community, real honesty, real help. Sixth, if you're struggling with suicidal thoughts right now, hear me clearly. I have not given up on you. Your pain is real, but the lies telling you that death is the only escape are from the enemy. Reach out, call for help, go to the emergency room, text the crisis line, do whatever you have to do to stay alive, because I have plans for you, and those plans are good. The storm reached its crescendo. Rain was pouring down now, soaking through my jacket, plastering my hair to my head. Lightning was striking all around, and the thunder was continuous, like the voice of God himself shaking the mountain, And in that moment, Jesus raised his hands toward the sky and shouted, "Enemy, you will not have them. You will not steal my children. You will not convince them that they're beyond my reach. I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and my sheep know my voice, and nothing, not pain, not mental illness, not demonic attack, not even their own hand against themselves, nothing can snatch them out of my hand." The lightning struck the ground right in front of us, so close I could feel the heat of it, and in that flash of light I saw something incredible. I saw the demonic fog that had covered the landscape being burned away. I saw the spirits of suicide fleeing. I saw the flickering lights, the people who were barely holding on, suddenly burning brighter. And I heard the sound of chains breaking. Thousands of chains, millions of chains, the chains of false teaching and religious bondage and shame and fear, all breaking at once. Jesus turned to me, and he was smiling now, even with tears still streaming down his face. "This is what happens when the truth is spoken," he said. "This is what happens when my mercy is proclaimed without limitation. People are set free. The enemy's lies lose their power. Hope is restored." The storm began to subside as quickly as it had come. The rain slowed to a drizzle, then stopped. The clouds began to break apart, and through the gaps, I could see the first light of dawn beginning to touch the eastern horizon. "It's finished," Jesus said quietly. "I've shown you what you needed to see. I've given you the message you needed to hear. Now you have to take it to my people." "They're going to call me a heretic," I said. "They're going to say I'm teaching false doctrine, that I'm giving people license to sin, that I'm undermining the seriousness of suicide." "I know," he said. "They said the same things about me when I ate with tax collectors and sinners, when I told the woman caught in adultery that I didn't condemn her, when I promised the thief on the cross that he'd be with me in paradise. Religious people have always valued their doctrines more than they value hurting people. But that doesn't change what's true, and it doesn't change what I'm calling you to do." He placed his hand on my shoulder one last time. "Tell them the truth. Tell them my mercy is bigger than their theology. Tell them that I am not the harsh judge they've been taught to fear, but the good shepherd who pursues his sheep even into the valley of the shadow of death. Tell them that for those who are mine, even suicide cannot separate them from my love." The sun broke over the horizon, flooding the landscape with golden light. The storm clouds were gone, and the sky was clear and blue. The snow and ice on the ground began to sparkle like diamonds. "And tell them," Jesus said, his voice fading as the vision ended, "tell them to hold on. Tell them I'm coming. Tell them their pain is not stronger than my love. Tell them that if they can just hold on for one more day, one more hour, one more minute, I will meet them there. I will carry them through. I will not let them go." And then he was gone, and I was alone on that mountaintop, soaking wet, exhausted, but filled with a fire that I knew would never go out. I stood there as the sun rose higher, warming my face, drying my clothes. And I thought about everyone who would see this message. I thought about the ones who are on the edge right now, who are planning to end their lives, who think they're beyond hope. I thought about the ones who've lost loved ones to suicide and have been carrying the unbearable weight of believing they're in hell. I thought about the church, about how desperately it needs to change, to become a place of real refuge instead of religious performance. And I made a commitment right there on that mountain that I would tell this story no matter what it cost me, no matter who got angry, no matter who called me a heretic, because lives are at stake, eternal destinies are at stake. And the truth, the real truth about Jesus' mercy, needs to be told. Listen to me. If you're struggling with suicidal thoughts right now, I need you to hear this one more time. Jesus has not given up on you. Your mental illness is not a spiritual failure. Your pain is real, and it matters, and it's not your fault. The lies telling you that everyone would be better off without you are from the pit of hell, and they are not true. Call the suicide prevention hotline right now, 988. Text HELLO to 741-741 to reach the crisis text line. Go to your nearest emergency room. Call a friend. Call a family member. Call your pastor. Do whatever you have to do to stay alive tonight. Because Jesus is coming for you. He's pursuing you. He's fighting for you, and he will not let you go. If you've lost someone to suicide, if you've been carrying the guilt and the fear that they're lost forever, hear this. God's mercy is bigger than you've been taught. Jesus doesn't abandon his children in their darkest moment. And if your loved one knew him, if they had said yes to his grace, then they are with him now, healed and whole and free from the pain that drove them to that final act. Tomorrow night, or rather, later today, because the sun is up now, I'm going to share the practical application of everything Jesus showed me. I'm going to give you specific steps, a 30-minute daily challenge that can save your life or help you save someone else's life. I'm going to tell you exactly what needs to change in the church and how you can be part of that change. But for now, just hold on. Just make it through today. Just choose life for one more day. You've been marked to receive this message. You've been chosen to hear this truth. Don't scroll past. Don't ignore it. Your presence here is not an accident. Leave your prayer requests in the comments. Tell me if you're struggling. Tell me if you've lost someone. Tell me if this message has given you hope, because we're in this together and you are not alone. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because this message could save a life. It could save your life. One more part to go. One more message. One more call to action that could change everything. I'll see you soon. It's been 3 days since that final encounter on the mountain, and I'm sitting here now at 2:17 p.m. on February 15th, 2026, back at that same overlook, but this time in broad daylight. The sun is warm on my face, maybe 55 degrees, and the landscape that looked so dramatic and otherworldly in the darkness and storm now appears peaceful, almost serene. The snow has melted except for patches in the shadows. Birds are singing. A hawk is circling overhead, riding the thermal currents. And I'm looking at this place where Jesus met me for 3 consecutive nights and fundamentally changed everything I thought I knew about his mercy. The contrast is striking. In the darkness, with the wind howling and the storm raging, everything felt apocalyptic, urgent, life or death. And it was. But now, in the daylight, I can see the beauty that was hidden in the darkness. I can see wildflowers beginning to bloom in the crevices of the rocks. I can see the way the sunlight catches the distant mountains, painting them in shades of purple and blue. I can see the Rio Grande winding through the valley below like a silver thread stitching the landscape together, and I realize that this is the point. This is the message within the message. What looks like darkness, what feels like the end, what seems like there's no way forward. It's not the whole story. There's always dawn coming. There's always beauty hidden in the shadows. There's always hope, even when you can't see it. But you have to stay alive long enough to see the sunrise. I've received over 40,000 comments since I posted the first 3 parts of this encounter. 40,000. And as I've read through them, and I have read them, every single one, I've seen the same themes repeated over and over. I was planning to kill myself tonight, but after watching this, I'm going to call for help instead. My son took his life 2 years ago, and I've been living in hell thinking he's in hell. This message has given me hope for the first time since he died. I'm a pastor, and I've been teaching the traditional view on suicide my whole ministry. I need to repent. I need to change. I've been adding to people's pain instead of offering them hope. I've struggled with suicidal thoughts for 15 years, and I've been too ashamed to tell anyone at church because I thought it meant I wasn't really saved. Now I understand it's not a spiritual failure. It's an illness that needs treatment. These comments, your comments, they're the reason I'm doing this final part. Because the encounter with Jesus was just the beginning. Now comes the practical application. Now comes the part where we take these revelations and turn them into action that saves lives. So here's what I'm going to give you today. A 30-minute daily challenge that can literally save your life or help you save someone else's life. Specific practical steps that you can start implementing today. And a deadline, because urgency matters, because the enemy isn't waiting, because people are dying right now while we're watching this video. But first, I need to address something that's come up repeatedly in the comments. Some people are accusing me of teaching universalism, of saying that everyone gets saved regardless of what they believe, that suicide is now somehow okay or consequence-free. So let me be absolutely clear, because this is crucial. I am not teaching universalism. I am not saying everyone is automatically saved. I am not saying suicide is okay or that it doesn't have devastating consequences. What I am saying, what Jesus showed me, is this. For those who have genuinely received his grace, who have said yes to Jesus, who belong to him, even suicide cannot separate them from his love. Their salvation is secure not because suicide isn't serious, but because Jesus' blood is sufficient to cover all sin, including this one. They may lose years on earth, they may miss their earthly destiny, they may cause immeasurable pain to those left behind, but they do not lose their eternal salvation. For those who have never known Jesus, who have never heard the gospel, or who were prevented by mental illness or demonic oppression from making a clear choice, Jesus' mercy extends even beyond death to offer them one final opportunity to receive his grace. This is not a second chance for those who clearly rejected him. This is mercy for those who never had a real first chance. For those who have clearly, willfully, repeatedly rejected Jesus in life and continued to reject him even when he offers grace in that moment between death and judgment, they face the consequences of their choice. Hell is real. Judgment is real, and it's possible to be lost forever. The difference is in the heart. Jesus judges the heart, he sees the whole story, and he makes the determination based on truth, not on our limited human understanding of what someone's final act means about their eternal destiny. Got it? Good, because I need you to understand this correctly before we move forward. Now let's talk about what you need to do. Let's talk about the 30-minute daily challenge that can change everything. The 30-minute daily challenge, I'm calling this the Lifeline Challenge, and it has three components: 10 minutes for yourself, 10 minutes for someone else, and 10 minutes for the bigger picture. Minutes 1, 10 for yourself. Every single day for the next 30 days, starting today, right now, I want you to spend 10 minutes doing what I call a reality check with Jesus. Not a devotional, not a Bible study, not a prayer time where you're trying to sound spiritual, a raw, honest conversation where you tell him exactly how you're really doing. Here's how it works. Set a timer for 10 minutes, find a quiet place, and then talk to Jesus like he's sitting right there with you, because he is. Tell him the truth. If you're struggling with suicidal thoughts, tell him. If you're angry at him, tell him. If you're doubting whether he's even real, tell him. If you're in so much pain you can barely breathe, tell him. Don't try to clean it up. Don't try to make it sound religious. Don't quote Bible verses at him unless they're genuinely expressing what you feel. Just be honest. And then, this is crucial, sit in silence for at least 3 of those 10 minutes and listen. Not for an audible voice necessarily, but for that still, small voice in your spirit, for a sense of his presence, for a thought that doesn't sound like your usual thoughts, for peace that doesn't make logical sense given your circumstances. Write down what you hear, even if it's just one word, even if you're not sure it's really him. Write it down. Do this every day for 30 days, no exceptions, even on the days you don't feel like it, especially on the days you don't feel like it, because here's what I've learned. Consistency creates connection, and connection with Jesus is the strongest defense against the enemy's lies that drive people to suicide. Minutes 11 to 20 for someone else. Every day, for 10 minutes, I want you to reach out to one person and have a real conversation. Not a text that says, "How are you?" and accepts "I'm fine" as an answer. A real conversation where you ask the question behind the question. Call someone, video chat with them, meet them for coffee, and ask them, "No, really, how are you doing? What's actually going on in your life right now?" And then listen, really listen. Don't try to fix them. Don't offer advice unless they ask for it. Don't quote Bible verses at them. Just listen and be present. If they say they're struggling, ask the hard question: have you been having thoughts of hurting yourself? Don't be afraid to ask. Asking doesn't plant the idea. It opens the door for them to admit what they're already thinking. If they say yes, don't panic, don't judge. Don't try to talk them out of it. Just say, "I'm so glad you told me. You're not alone. Let's get you some help right now." And then help them call the suicide prevention hotline, 988, or take them to the emergency room, or help them find a therapist. If they say no, they're not having those thoughts, but they're clearly struggling. Offer practical help. Can I bring you dinner tonight? Can I help you with your kids this weekend? Can I just sit with you for a while? Do this every day. One person, 10 minutes, real connection. Because here's the truth. Isolation kills. The enemy's primary strategy is to isolate people, to convince them they're alone, that no one cares, that they're a burden. And the antidote to isolation is connection. Real, authentic, I see you and I'm not going anywhere connection. Minutes 21:30 for the bigger picture. Every day, for 10 minutes, I want you to do something that contributes to changing the culture around mental illness and suicide. This could be educating yourself about mental health. Read an article, watch a video, learn about depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. Understand that these are medical conditions, not spiritual failures. Advocating for change in your church. Email your pastor. Request that the church bring in mental health professionals to train the congregation. Suggest starting a support group for people struggling with mental illness. Offer to help make your church a stigma-free zone. Sharing resources on social media. Post the suicide prevention hotline number, 988. Share articles about mental health. Share this video. Use your platform, no matter how small, to spread hope and truth. Supporting organizations that are fighting suicide. Donate to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Volunteer for a crisis hotline. Participate in awareness walks. Put your money and your time where your mouth is. Having hard conversations with your family and friends. Talk about mental health at the dinner table. Ask your kids if they or their friends are struggling. Create an environment where it's safe to not be okay. 10 minutes a day. That's all. But over 30 days, that's 5 hours of education, advocacy, and culture changing work. Multiply that by everyone watching this video, and we're talking about a movement. The deadline. Here's the urgency. I'm giving you 30 days from today until March 17th, 2026, to implement this challenge. Not because Jesus' mercy has a deadline, but because people who are on the edge right now don't have time to waste. Every day we delay, every day we stay comfortable in our ignorance or our stigma or our religious platitudes, people are dying. 30 days. That's your deadline. And at the end of those 30 days, I want you to come back to this video and leave a comment telling me what changed. Tell me if you're still alive when you weren't sure you would be. Tell me if you helped save someone's life. Tell me if your church has started to change. Tell me if you found hope. Because your testimony will give someone else hope. Your story will save someone else's life. Your willingness to be honest about your struggle will give someone else permission to be honest about theirs. Specific steps for different groups. Let me break this down even further for specific groups of people who are watching this. If you're struggling with suicidal thoughts right now, call 988 immediately, right now. Pause this video and call, or text "hello" to 741741. Do it now. Tell someone you trust what you're going through, a friend, a family member, a pastor, a therapist. Break the isolation. Go to your doctor and get evaluated for depression, anxiety, or other mental health conditions. Get medication if you need it. There is no shame in this. Remove the means. If you have a plan, remove access to whatever method you were planning to use. Give your medications to someone else to hold. Get rid of weapons. Stay away from high places. Make a safety plan. Write down the warning signs that you're in crisis, the coping strategies that help you, the people you can call, the places you can go to stay safe. Commit to staying alive for 24 hours, just 24 hours, and then when those 24 hours are up, commit to another 24 hours. Take it one day at a time. Remember what Jesus showed me. Your pain is real, but the lies telling you that death is the only escape are from the enemy. Your mental illness is not a spiritual failure, and Jesus has not given up on you. If you've lost someone to suicide, stop carrying the guilt. It's not your fault. You didn't cause it. You couldn't have prevented it. Mental illness and the enemy's attacks are more powerful than any one person's ability to intervene. Stop believing the lie that your loved one is in hell. If they knew Jesus, if they had received his grace, then they are with him now, healed and whole. Jesus' mercy is bigger than their final act. Get grief counseling. Losing someone to suicide is a unique kind of trauma. You need professional help to process it. Join a support group for suicide loss survivors. You need to be around people who understand what you're going through. When you're ready, use your pain to help others. Share your story. Advocate for suicide prevention. Turn your tragedy into a testimony that saves lives. Remember what Jesus showed me. He was there in that moment. He didn't abandon your loved one. He caught them when they fell, and his mercy triumphed over their pain. If you're a pastor or church leader, repent. If you've been teaching that suicide is the unforgivable sin, if you've been stigmatizing mental illness as a spiritual failure, if you've been creating an environment where people have to pretend to be okay, repent. Publicly. From the pulpit. Get trained. Bring in mental health professionals to train your staff and your congregation on how to recognize warning signs and how to help people in crisis. Create a mental health ministry. Start support groups for people struggling with depression, anxiety, PTSD, and other conditions. Make your church a safe place for people to be honest about their struggles. Preach about mental health. Talk about it from the pulpit. Normalize it. Destigmatize it. Make it clear that mental illness is not a spiritual failure. Budget for it. Allocate funds for counseling, for training, for resources. Put your money where your mouth is. Partner with professionals. Build relationships with Christian therapists, psychiatrists, and counselors in your community. Have a referral list ready. Change your language. Stop saying things like, just pray more, or you need to have more faith to people who are struggling with mental illness. Start saying things like, I'm so glad you told me, let's get you some help. Remember what Jesus showed me. Your job is not to have all the answers. Your job is to create a community where people can be honest about their pain and get the help they need. If you're a mental health professional, understand the spiritual component. Mental illness is not just biological or psychological. There's often a spiritual warfare element. Partner with churches and pastors who understand this. Don't dismiss faith. For many people, their relationship with Jesus is a crucial part of their healing. Don't treat it as a crutch or a delusion. Be aware of religious trauma. Many people struggling with suicidal thoughts have been wounded by the church's teaching on suicide and mental illness. Help them separate the truth about Jesus from the lies they've been told about him. Advocate for your clients. Help them find churches that are safe, that understand mental health, that won't judge them or shame them. Remember what Jesus showed me. You're not just treating a brain, you're treating a whole person, body, soul, and spirit. All three need healing. The bigger picture. Here's what I believe Jesus is calling the church to in this moment: a complete transformation in how we think about and respond to mental illness and suicide. For too long, we've treated mental illness as a spiritual problem that can be solved with more prayer, more faith, more Bible reading. And while those things are important, they're not sufficient for someone whose brain chemistry is out of balance or whose neural pathways have been rewired by trauma. For too long, we've stigmatized people who struggle with mental illness, making them feel like they're less spiritual, less faithful, less saved than people who don't struggle in this way. For too long, we've taught a version of God's mercy that's too small, too conditional, too limited, especially when it comes to suicide. And people have died because of it. People are dying right now because of it. This has to change, and it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with every person watching this video making a decision that we're going to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm not saying there won't be pushback. I've already received death threats for sharing what Jesus showed me on that mountain. I've been called a heretic, a false teacher, a tool of Satan. People have said I'm leading people astray, that I'm giving people license to sin, that I'm undermining the seriousness of suicide. But I don't care, because lives are at stake. And I would rather be called a heretic for proclaiming Jesus' mercy too loudly than be guilty of withholding hope from people who are drowning. The call to action. So here's what I need you to do right now, today, before you close this video. Leave a comment. Tell me if you're struggling. Tell me if you've lost someone. Tell me if this message has given you hope. Tell me if you're committing to the 30-day challenge. Be honest. Be real, because your comment might be the thing that saves someone else's life. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell, because I'm going to continue sharing encounters like this, messages that challenge the status quo, truths that set people free. Share this video, send it to someone who's struggling, post it on your social media, email it to your pastor. Get this message to as many people as possible, because every person who sees it is a potential life saved. Start the 30-day challenge today, not tomorrow, not next week, today. Set your timer for 10 minutes right now and have that honest conversation with Jesus. Then reach out to one person, then spend 10 minutes on the bigger picture. If you're in crisis, call 988 right now. Don't wait, don't think about it, just call. Your life is worth saving. Your story is not over. Jesus has not given up on you. My personal commitment. I want to tell you something personal, something I haven't shared publicly before. There was a time in my life, before The Chosen, before any of this, when I struggled with suicidal thoughts. I was in a dark place, financially broke, professionally stuck, spiritually dry. And there were nights when I thought about ending it, when I thought everyone would be better off without me, when death seemed like the only escape from the pain. I didn't do it, obviously, but not because I was strong or because I had great faith. I didn't do it because one person, one friend, called me at 2 a.m. and said, "I know you're not okay. I'm coming over. Don't do anything until I get there." That friend saved my life. Not with Bible verses, not with platitudes, just with presence, just with, "I see you, and I'm not letting you go through this alone." And now, years later, I've been given the extraordinary privilege of portraying Jesus in The Chosen. I've been given a platform. I've been given these encounters on the mountain, and I believe with everything in me that it's all been leading to this moment, to this message, to this call to action. Because if my story can give someone hope, if my willingness to be vulnerable about my own struggles can give someone permission to be honest about theirs, if this message can save even one life, then it's all worth it. Every death threat, every accusation of heresy, every person who unsubscribes or unfollows or calls me a false teacher, it's all worth it if even one person chooses life instead of death because of this message. The final word. I'm sitting here on this mountaintop overlook in the daylight now, and I'm looking at the place where Jesus met me in the darkness, and I'm thinking about everyone watching this video. I'm thinking about the ones who are on the edge right now, the ones who've lost someone, the ones who are carrying guilt and shame and fear, the ones who thought they were beyond hope. And I hear his voice one more time, soft as the breeze that's blowing across this mountain. Tell them I haven't given up on them. Tell them their pain doesn't disqualify them from my love. Tell them to hold on because I'm coming for them. Tell them that nothing, not mental illness, not demonic attack, not even their own hand against themselves, nothing can separate them from my love if they're mine. Tell them that my mercy is bigger than their theology, bigger than their pain, bigger than their darkest moment. Tell them that I am the good shepherd who leaves the 99 to find the one, who pursues my sheep even into the valley of the shadow of death, who will not rest until every last one of my children is safely home. That's the message. That's the truth. That's the hope that can pull you back from the edge. You've been marked to receive this message. Your presence here right now is not an accident. You were meant to see this. You were meant to hear this. You were meant to be saved by this. So don't scroll past. Don't ignore it. Don't put it off until later. Choose life, today, right now, in this moment. Call for help if you need it. Reach out to someone. Start the 30-day challenge. Be part of the movement that changes how the church thinks about and responds to mental illness and suicide. Because your life matters, your story matters, your pain matters, and Jesus has not given up on you. I'm standing here on this mountain, looking out over this vast landscape, and I'm thinking about how different everything looks in the daylight, how the darkness that seemed so overwhelming just a few nights ago has given way to beauty and hope and possibility. That's what I want for you. I want you to stay alive long enough to see the sunrise. I want you to hold on long enough to see that the darkness is not the whole story. I want you to choose life long enough to discover that Jesus' mercy is bigger, deeper, wider, and more powerful than anything you've been taught. The hawk is still circling overhead. The sun is warm on my face. The wildflowers are blooming in the cracks of the rocks. And I'm alive to see it all because someone cared enough to call me at 2 a.m. and say, "Don't give up." Now I'm saying it to you. Don't give up. Hold on. Choose life. Call for help. Start the challenge. Be part of the change. Your story is not over. Your best chapters are still ahead. And Jesus is not done with you yet. I'll see you in the comments. I'll see you in 30 days when you come back to share your testimony. I'll see you on the other side of this darkness in the light of a new day. You've been marked. You've been chosen. You've been saved. Now go live like it. Resources: National Suicide Prevention. Lifeline: 988. Call or text. Crisis text line. Text HELLO to 741741. International Association for Suicide Prevention. https www.iasp.info. Resources: Crisis Centers. American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. https afsp.org. National Alliance on Mental Illness. NAMI. https www.nami.org. If you're outside the U.S., search for Suicide Prevention Hotline, plus your country name to find local resources. Remember, you are loved, you are seen, you are not alone, and Jesus has not given up on you. Hold on, the sunrise is coming.